Inash Gorashakar and Soni Patnaik and Kushbora all join in with their technical and fundamental views. Soni, we've kick-started the December series on a pretty solid note. This morning, cues from the world over aren't too bad either. The buy seems positive, and it seems like 23,900 has become an immediate sort of base for the Nifty. If you get a start around the levels we closed at on Friday, would you initiate fresh longs on the Nifty and Bank Nifty?
Hi, good morning, Samina and everyone. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I think Nifty, if we look at the December series, it started with decent rollovers, of 77%, 79%. It has been holding above its average as well. The entire series outlook is being played that, if it's holding 24,000 on a closing basis, at least on a weekly base that we saw on Friday, I think that is going to be very crucial to watch out for. So 24,000 PCR has moved beyond 1.2, which is indicating that the put writers have dominated that strike on the first day of the December series itself. Of course, we can see that 24,300, 350 holds a very crucial resistance. If it moves above that, 24,500 will be another level of crucial resistance. So right now, the entire index is playing a range-bound scenario. We've got multiple resistances, but at the same time, we've also got multiple supports around 24,000 on closing basis, 23,900 on an intraday base. So the idea would be to remain and play in this range bound. If you see a dip towards 24,000, one can initiate a long from those levels for an intraday trade perspective, and again book around 24,200, 250 odd level. So that's the range bound play, which can continue for another day or two. Fresh upside can only be seen once it takes out the resistance of 24,350. Similarly, on Bank Nifty actually has shown long rollovers for December series. Now it has been holding to a level of 51,000 for the December series. It has started above that. It's important that it consolidates right now 51,500 to 52,500 as a range. Fresh upside in Bank Nifty can be seen once it closes above the 52,500 mark. But considering that the long rollovers has been initiated for December series, a day or two of sideways trend before Bank Nifty gives out that breakout and leads the next leg of rally towards 53,500 odd levels.
Right. Soni, in terms of stock ideas, what are you recommending this Monday morning?
So Samina, the first would be in BEL. It has shown 96% of long rollovers. And just to add a disclaimer, we've also recommended BEL as a December rollovers pick officially to all our GM clients. So here we're recommending a buy in BEL on any small declines up to 308. One can buy BEL, keep a stop loss of 300 and a target of 320 to 325 can be seen. This is a bit of a positional play, so buy on dip strategy can be applied to it. Now it has very strong rollovers of 96% plus a very strong base closing above 300 mark. So that's very important as a support of 300 to held to be defended. One can look for higher targets towards 320, 325. The other buy would be in Ultra Siemens. Now, the entire Siemens space, we've seen good momentum last series as well as this series. The momentum is continuing in the space in the sector. So one can buy in Ultra Siemens and keep a stop loss of 10,800, 850 is a very good support. One can keep a stop loss of 10,850. A higher target of 11,600 to 11,800 can be seen. So on Friday closing, Ultra Siemens has closed above all its major short moving averages on daily charts, which is indicating a positive outlook.
Well, Kush, you want to come in with your technical view on the market, the Nifty and Bank Nifty this morning?
First up, a very good morning, and Soni's made my life very easy because my view and her view are practically coinciding, at least on the Nifty, which is it's a range play, 23,800 on the downside, 24,400 on the upside. Closer to 24,000 is where you want to buy, so the risk-reward ratio is favorable. And either side, where the Nifty breaks will decide the near-term trend. So the view remains the same as Soni's already mentioned. Closer to 24,000 is where you buy. If fresh momentum has to kick in, then it has to happen above the 24,400 mark that the Nifty has seen for some time now. Bank Nifty also, we've seen this 2,000 point range for about 2 months where 50,300 on the downside and 52,300 on the upside has been really playing out. Now above 52,300 is where momentum will kick in. One shift that is happening in at least my view is that for a while now, for at least last 2-3 months, Bank Nifty has been the favored index from a momentum perspective as well, and from a long positioning perspective index. That is starting to change a bit because Nifty is gaining more traction, perhaps because other sectors like IT, infra, some of these other names also starting to play, and Bank Nifty perhaps now consolidating. So I would be a little more bullish on the Nifty compared to the Bank Nifty, but both of them are in a steady space, and both of them are in a buy on dips kind of a frame setup right now.
Just a quick word on the flashes on your screen. We highlighted how Samina and Romana Hamid were looking to do a stake sale in Cipla. That block deal has just hit the street. In fact, Cipla has 13.9 million shares that have changed hands in 4 block deals, and Cipla has 1.72% of equity that has been executed. So this was a trade that the street was eyeing. Of course, I personally am very divided whether this is good news or bad news, but like Neeraj said, it's a thumbs up for the stock because the overhang will now be behind Cipla, and you may see a flat to slightly lower start, but as we go along through the day, the stock could recover sharply in trade. Well, Avinash, how are you feeling about the markets as we step into December? November was rough, but it was getting better than what we had seen in October. Do you feel like December could bring with it some good news in terms of market movement upward?
Good morning, Samina. I think clearly, markets today are going to react to a lot of news, specifically, on the GDP data number, plus the GST numbers, and obviously the auto numbers. But coming to the point that whether December will be better than November, I think clearly, markets seem to have bottomed out. I don't think any incremental panic is going to happen. But yes, I think the bigger trigger for the market would obviously be how soon the FI outflow, reverses. And I think December is a month where all of us would agree that, post 15th or 20th of December, volumes normally go a little lower. Most of the FIs are out for vacation. So I think it's going to be a very lackluster month. My sense is that, the near term, I think trigger would be the RBI policy. I think clearly the markets should be awaiting the commentary, although the call, according to most market, observers, is that this will be a neutral call from the governor this time. But clearly, any commentary about cutting interest rates, I think that would be noted.
Okay, I think we just lost Avinash, but I think the point that he made is interesting because yes, it will be on the commentary from the Reserve Bank of India. Really doubt that there will be a rate action, but there could be a CRR cut, even though Indranil Pan said there might not be. And by the way, watch out whether there is a Bank Nifty weakness today. Because of the GDP numbers that have come out, the Nifty may still do okay. Keep in mind, the implied open also has come off from the levels that it was trading at the start of the day. Okay, before we hit that break, a glance at the profit watch list. These are the stocks that we believe should be on top of your mind. So, first one, Cipla. We call it a green because it's a clean out trade, and after a negative reaction, the stock may recover a little bit from intraday lows, so keep that in mind. Aster DM, the merger with Quality Care done as a share swap, makes it one of the largest hospital chains in the country, could be positive. Dixon Tech, it's a manufacturing contract with Google Pixel for Compal for Google Pixel smartphones, could be a positive for Dixon. KC International reacts on order wins, yet another one that they've gotten 1,040 crores, takes their annual order inflow to 17,300 crores. And Cochin Shipyard, one more order win, 1,000 crore pact with the government, could do well.
To add to that list, Anant Raj will be in focus. MK Nishit's a buy with an aggressive target price of 925. Biocon becomes an important one to watch. Crohn's drug gets US FDA approval. Maruti and TVS Motors both reported double-digit sale numbers, November sales, and have beaten expectations. So both those counters, so it's good to see potentially a positive reaction in trade this morning.
And just a few misses. Thumbs down to Hyundai, Hero Moto and Escorts on the November sales, while TVS and Maruti have done well. These haven't and may react a little negatively. Time for a break. We'll be back with the pre-open session. back with India Market Open right here on NDTV Profit. We have a sedate start. A lot of people anticipated a big crack. That isn't happening, which is a good sign. The question is what to do in a scenario like this. Kush Bora has given us his outlook on the index. What about specific stocks? Kush, what are you trading this morning?
Given the setup, there is a mix of a long and a short. On the cash side, I've got Pitti Engineering. The stock's actually done rather well for itself. It's on the verge of a rounding bottom breakout. And for the last couple of sessions, it's seen very good volumes, practically double of the monthly averages. Now, on the long side, from a near-term perspective, you could look at targets at 1555 and a stop loss at 1365. On the short side, I've got IGL. We've seen a bit of a bounce here, but this could be more of a dead cat bounce. It hasn't really been able to take out the 330 resistance zone. So up until that is taken out, you can remain short on IGL or create fresh shorts. The target here is 326 and 320 with your stop loss coming in at 342.
Well, auto stocks are going to be in focus this morning. It's been a mixed bag for the auto pack with TVS and Maruti reporting numbers that have beaten street expectations. But you've got the others like Hyundai that have disappointed the street. Puneet is standing by with a quick breakdown of those numbers. Puneet, what stood out and what hasn't?
Well, thanks for that. It's definitely been a mixed bag, but some surprises allure in this particular month as well. Maruti Suzuki is the first one. It's coming at roughly about 10% growth, 1.8 lakhs versus 1.64 in the same time last year. And that's, in context of for Diwali being in November 2023 as well. So on the back of a strong base, the company has really done well. It's also important not to look at month on month in this particular month is because, Diwali came between 28th October and November 2nd and 3rd as well. So the issue is that Diwali was also split, and that has also had an impact on auto sales. So year-on-year comparison is a key, as well as the base here is something important. So expectations were slightly subdued, but Maruti is surprised on the upside. As mentioned, estimates were of about 1.7 lakh. It's come at 1.81. And another key thing about Maruti is that the sales have fallen for the small cars at a slower pace compared to the previous month. So that's also led to a beat as well. SUV has performed very well. The second one is a Hyundai Motor India. It's it's a thumbs down because sales have come in at roughly about 7% fall, coming in at 61,000 versus estimates of 65,000. So clearly a miss there, and that's led by a 20% fall in the export sales. So that might be down in trade today. The other one is Tata Motors. Now it's a very interesting case because on Friday we gave the preview that CV sales might be higher, but and PV sales might be lower. This actually come on the opposite side. The PV sales, the passenger car sales, are up roughly about 2%, which has met estimates, coming in at 47,000 versus estimates of 43,000 roughly. While the CV sales are coming in roughly or down 1% versus estimates of a 6 to 8% rise in sales. So watch out for that on a neutral stance. Escorts 9% fall in tractor sales. It's missed estimates by roughly about 900 units. So that's a lot. TVS Motors, a key positive again, crossing the 4 lakh sales mark despite very strong month on month and a very strong base as well. So sales are up 10% at 4 lakh versus 3 lakh 64. This is versus estimates of about 3.52 lakh units. So it's beaten estimates by 50,000 units in this particular month. Discounting has been at a higher end, but the EV sales are up 57%. Finally, Eicher Motors, again similar to Tata Motors, the CV sales haven't come in. It came in at roughly a 7% growth versus analyst estimates of 13. And Hero MotoCorp is another one which might be impacted on the downside. Sales have actually fallen in this particular month, coming in at 4.6 versus 4.9 lakhs. So overall, Maruti as well as TVS are the only ones that have given a beat. We are still awaiting numbers from Bajaj as well as M&M.
Bajaj and M&M. Remember, M&M has been a consensus universal pick by most fundamental analysts recently. But Sony, amongst the auto names, any long trades here? TVS and Maruti have impressed the street. So would you be tempted to initiate a long trade on either of those auto counters?
So Samina, not perhaps in TVS or Maruti, but definitely would keep my eyes on Hero Motors. Now it has been sideways. It is consolidating. Now that stock has been in a very broad range, somewhere between 4,700 to 4,900 as a broad range. So there's a possibility that if the stock either breaks the lower end of the range or the higher end of the range, we would get either side of the of a trend. But most likely if it breaks on the higher end, which is above the 4930, 4950 mark, you can see the stock heading higher towards 5100. So I think this is one stock which is in radar from the auto space.
Avinash, what did you make of the auto sales? And independent of the sales, it seems like the EV segment is doing well. So would you try and create tactical investment / trading positions in a TVS or a Mahindra and Mahindra, both of which are actually at the forefront of this electric vehicle movement, if you will?
Yeah, good morning, Neeraj. I think M&M definitely deserves to be looked in, because I think clearly the kind of EV launch which they have planned, and I think the recent product launches in the EV basket are definitely very promising. My sense is that once the numbers come out, you probably see some more commentary from the management. But I think M&M, probably looks to be quite, solid and attractive even at the current odd levels. We look at a fair value of at least 3,400 in the next, say, 6 to 12 months. And most importantly, it's been a stable performer all throughout. As far as the auto numbers are concerned, I think, Maruti and TVS have shown positive kind of gains. But if you look at Hero Motor, I think the numbers were slightly disappointing. My sense is that in the passenger car segment there could be a lull, but because December in any way now in the coming month is a month where most of the buyers avoid buying cars in this month, but January again there would be a pickup. So broadly, I think Mahindra and Mahindra looks to be quite interesting. Plus from the agri kind of product portfolio, I would believe that they have a very strong tractor kind of portfolio from the farm equipment side, which I think also is slowly picking up. With a good monsoon, Neeraj, I think you could see better numbers coming in from that product basket, which is extremely, accretive in terms of EBITDA margins. So I think Mahindra and Mahindra, definitely can be purchased. I mean, if the market is slightly flattish today, and probably the stock corrects marginally, I think you could get a chance to accumulate this. But I think clearly Maruti and TVS Motors look to be fairly valued.
Quickly, Kush, Adani stocks, they've been the star trade all of last week. Adani Green, Adani Total, both of them have done quite well. Now with the inclusion in the FNO space, any of the trades that still look good to you on the long side?
Ports still has been one of our favored picks in the from the stable, and if you see the recovery in this has been slightly faster and more sustainable compared to the rest of the pack. So this one continues to remain on top of our radar. Mild resistance around the 1200 1220 mark, but once that is taken out, you'll see the gap filling process happen all the way up until 1260, and beyond that you're looking at 1300 also. So positionally, I think Adani Ports is one stock that we prefer from the stable, and a stop loss on this one comes close to 1150. So even if you're looking to create a month-long futures position, then Adani Ports is the stock that you should look for.
Okay, so Adani Ports, it is from Kush's end. Remember, there's a Nuova note today, which gives it a significant upside. Let's wait and watch if that stock indeed reacts. But speaking of notes, time for the big brokerage call of the day. UBS has released a note on Petronet LNG. To tell us more about this, we have Mika joining in. Mika, what does UBS have to say?
Good morning, Neeraj. They've actually upgraded the rating on Petronet LNG from a neutral earlier to a buy. They've also hiked the target price to 400 rupees versus 320 rupees earlier, and this implies around a 19% upside to the previous close. The stock has mainly been upgraded because of the inexpensive valuations that the company is trading at, and the company is trading at around a 15% discount to the 10-year historical average. The Petronet is one of the main beneficiaries of India's LNG imports. Now, UBS states that around 80 to 85% of India's incremental gas demand will be met by LNG imports going forward over FY24 to FY28, and Petronet LNG has the capability to cater around 50% of the incremental LNG imports. Three things that are working for the company. One is the Dahej terminal expansion of the company from 17.5 to 22.5 million metric ton per annum, which will be completed by March 2025. The second one is better pipeline connectivity of their Kochi terminal, which will be completed by mid of 2025, and the delay in the commissioning or ramp up of other competitive terminals that are coming on stream. Lastly, they mentioned the strong balance sheet, and the company's aggressive plan will only have a limited impact on the company's dividend payout. They've mentioned They've mentioned the company's cash position as well as improving internal accruals as key pointers that would limit the impact on the dividend payout. And they've also noted how their petchem capex of the company is spread out for the next 4 to 5 years.
That Mika's, that's a buy on Petronet by UBS. Sony, a few more counters that were quite active on Friday was everything in the pharma pack. So from your Sun Pharma to DVs, and also adding one more, even though it's not pharma, was Bharti, a 6% up move in trade on back of a brokerage upgrade. Any of these still look ripe for a long trade this morning if one initiates it at 9:15?
So I think, Samina, from the pharma space, Biocon is one stock which is looking quite strong. It has given a fresh breakout in recent days on daily charts. So there's a possibility of the stock actually testing a 385 to 390 on the high side, and it has crossed the resistance of 360. So I think that's very important. One can initiate a small decline up to 370. That range is good enough to initiate a buy, keep a very strict stop loss of 360 and look for higher targets of 390. And talking about Bharti showed a very strong move once it crossed the 1610 mark. So I think a lot of call writers had positioned themselves at 1600, 1620. It was an easy breeze for Bharti to move beyond that resistance. And from there, we saw it heading higher towards 1640 odd levels. So I think if it continues to hold above the 1620 mark, the stock can head towards 1700 on a positional basis.
Part of the government, right?
Okay, well, so 5 minutes left, and as the pre-open rates have settled, it seems that, it's a flattish start that we have on our hand. The only question is, are there some stocks that will beat the mood and do well? That remains the key question. Now, from amongst the stocks that were in news today, by the way, rupees open at record lows, so this shouldn't surprise people, but remember there's this it's a complex subject, and Samina will talk more about it maybe a bit later on, but the RBI is now trading in the non-deliverable forward markets on the offshore side and trying to hedge the bets there and show its hand as well. 84.6, 11 paise, record lows because of the GDP, but let's wait and watch if this one to change. Now, whether this has an impact on IT is a very flimsy question, but the point that I want to talk about is our stocks which were in news. So Dixon Tech should come up on your screen. Dixon Tech has done a tie-up for manufacturing of Google Pixel phones. Start will be small. Can they rake it up is the key question. Now, Avinash, what did you make of this announcement?
No, I think this is a big kind of a sentimental booster for the stock, and I think despite the fact that valuations are not cheap, I think the bigger opportunity is very clear that more and more outsourcing will happen, and I think companies which are well positioned in this space are going to benefit significantly. I think from a 2-year perspective, Dixon seems to be a very solid story, despite the fact that it's not a cheap kind of stock. Our sense is that whoever wants to make a decent alpha or a decent gain here has to give in some more time, because order wins are good, execution has been also been pretty solid. I think for all this to get reflected into numbers, I think it would take some time. But yes, the tailwinds are definitely very strong. So I think I won't be surprised, Neeraj, that today the stock would open on a stronger note. And I think this upside would continue because markets are definitely elated that this order boost is going to obviously definitely boost up earnings in a good way. So I think net a positive kind of bias, but I would still suggest one should look at these kind of stocks on any correction or any market kind of decline.
Well, that's Dixon Tech, 1.5% higher in pre-open trade. While we are at it, let's take a look at how the other few names are doing in this trading session. Bharti was one of your top gainers. Adani stocks will continue to see gains. HDFC Bank had a good run on Friday, even though Bank Nifty may not be looking as solid as the Nifty at this stage. Apart from that, crude is off, so OMCs will be in focus. You may see some movement on the HPCL, BPCL, IOCs of the world in today's trade. Sony, you want to come in on a couple of these other sort of trading ideas. So OMCs, I would imagine, should respond. IT, Neeraj talked about, while it sounds flimsy, but IT stocks do react daily to the way the dollar-rupee pair plays out. Anything in IT or anything in OMCs that you would buy?
So Samina, if we talk about OMCs, I believe that HPCL, BPCL, IOC, they're just consolidating, and it's been like 4 to 5 days of the consolidation, which is happening in a very broader range. Now, BPCL is very interesting because it saw a very strong correction from 350 odd levels all the way to 280. Now, it reversed from 280. Although it has not crossed the 300, 305 resistance, it is just consolidating from the reversal that we've seen from 280 mark. So it's very interesting. The moment it crosses the 305 level in December series, you can see a very sharp short covering rally towards 330 odd levels once again. So this stock risk reward ratio also seems quite favorable. 280 seems to be a very good support as of now, and one can hold on to the longs for December series with 280 as a very strict stop loss. If we talk about the entire IT space, IT has actually given out decent rollovers, especially mid-cap IT, and one must keep a watch in stocks like either Coforge or Persistent. Both these stocks are looking quite decent. Now, Persistent has a very strong support around 5,800. So anywhere close to that level, if it does not break, it can consolidate it. The higher level of it, fresh upside breakout in Persistent can be seen above the 6050 mark. So keep a watch in Persistent.
Keep a watch on Persistent Systems. Sony's mentioning. Okay, we have less than a minute left. Kush, I'll come to you for your top idea, but I'll only couple that up with a chart check on RBL Bank, which is starting off about 4% lower.
Yeah, clearly under pressure, below 150, I think it just only gets weaker from there on. So avoid this one even for a short trade. On the long side, you can consider CAMS, which has had a good last 4 sessions and could move to 5100 and 5250 kind of levels also. Stop loss comes in at 4800.